I read this article today that was actually talking about Osho, saying that they're making a Netflix series, documentary about, um, the disciple, his disciples and his followers that were following him, and they created this, this ashram in Oregon, um, and it was interesting to even find the article that they would even talk about him. The documentary is called Wild Wild Country, and there's a trailer out there on YouTube that you could take a look at. I'll put the trailer in the description section of this video. The article was titled some type of like, saying that he's like a sex, like, like some type of sex guru or something like that. And um, there's like negative things that they're saying about him, and then there's some positive things. And I guess the documentary is kind of trying to not make any judgments, but to kind of show both sides to it. And I did see somebody's commentary on it, and he kept talking about him having 19 Rolls Royces and all that, and it's just like, to me, I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? It's like Donald Trump is the president of the United States, and he's like a multi-millionaire or a multi-billionaire. Floyd Mayweather Jr. is a multi-millionaire. Steve Jobs and all these rich people all over the world, and just because Osho had these cars, what does that have to do with his being and what he had to share? It's like, what does people expect him to be poor, like Gandhi or something, or people that are preaching poverty? I mean, Osho was one of the very few spiritual sages that was promoting luxury and promoting people to live a comfortable life while heading towards spirituality and wisdom. And then people are trying to use that against him as if somehow he's a bad person because you know, because he knew how to enjoy luxurious things, and um, I think that's a very poor excuse to discount somebody, and I don't care what the article says, I don't care what the video says, the documentary, I don't care what Wikipedia says. um, I'm a follower of truth, and when I read his books, I'm drawn to his messages, and I could feel like the truth within what I'm reading, and the way that he sees things and the way that he expresses his ideas coincides with what I feel inside. Even before finding his work, you know, I was drawn to Lao Tzu, I was drawn to Zen, I was drawn to Bruce Lee, I was drawn to J. Krishnamurti, I was drawn to the Eastern teachings, to Buddha. And then he's the person that came in to put it all together and to enhance my understanding of it, all of it. And his teachings are essentially the teachings of the East. And the Western mentality, this mind mentality, this ego mentality, some Westerners have a really difficult time understanding his teachings, and they're trying. Some people are gonna try to label his teachings as, as being evil, or that he's setting up a cult, or whatever the case may be, or the people that follow him, that there's something wrong with them. And I feel that the government and a lot of these people that just don't understand him, they turn against him, and they try to make it seem like he's trying to do something evil. But in actuality, there's a lot of truth in his expression. And when you see the documentary, I haven't seen the documentary, but just seeing the trailer, and you see how many followers he had, and how many people were inspired by him, and how many people were following him and learning from him and studying him. And um, there was something beautiful going on at that time when he was alive that rarely ever happens. You know, when you have somebody of such high influence within the realm of spirituality that's leading so many people towards kind of an alternative perspective, pretty much introducing these Eastern teachings and then capturing people's hearts and having them naturally gravitate towards him. You know, that is essentially he was pretty much doing the work of what Bruce Lee was initially introducing to Americans. You know, he was actually doing it, you know, leading groups and hundreds and thousands of people towards a deeper understanding of these Eastern teachings. And you got like a lot of these Western religious fanatics that turn against his teachings and label him as a bad person, as evil, as a cult leader, and try to shut him down and, you know, pretty much put a stop to that movement, you know. And you know, I love his teachings, you know, because his teachings are not just something that I follow. It's that the teachings are something that's already in me. As I stated before, I even knew about him. The teachings are already in me. He was just expressing it in his own way, in his own time. And I happened to fall upon his teachings and discover that his teachings coincide with what I feel inside. You know, so people that speak against him and have all these negative things to say about him, in a way, they're pretty much, you know, in a way attacking what I see to be truth as well. You know, but, you know, they're just guiding that negative energy towards him. But aside from that, he does have a lot of people all over the world that love his teachings, and a lot of followers, a lot of disciples. And you look at his books, you know, a lot of people buy his books. And you look at YouTube, he has a lot of videos on there. He has millions of, you know, views on his videos. He has thousands of subscribers, and he has a you know, a meditation. He has a meditation center in India right now, and his fame is growing, his popularity is growing. They even made this documentary about him. He has had a huge impact in people's lives back then, and he continues to have a huge impact on people's lives even today. So that says something. You know, no matter how much they try to assassinate his character, the truth is there is something special within his expression that not everybody can see, but a lot of people can see. And I'm one of those individuals that could see, you know, the beauty in his teachings. And, you know, his teachings are essentially just an extension of my own teachings, just like Bruce Lee's teachings are an extension of my own. It just so happens that I came after Bruce Lee, I came after Osho, but their teachings are within me, and when I speak and when I teach, their spirits are pretty much with me, you know. Their spirits are within my expression as well. And, you know, there's going to be people out there that say negative things about him, but also remember, you know, the people that follow Jesus and that love Jesus and they call themselves Catholics and Christians, remember what happened to Jesus. Remember that they crucified him. You know, remember that a lot of people were against him while he was alive, and, you know, remember that. You know, so they did the same to him. You know, speakers of truth, you know, a lot of times they're not always the most popular. You know, look at how they're treating Osho. Look at what they did to Martin Luther King Jr. Look what they did to Malcolm X. And then what did they do with Donald Trump? They put him in office. You know, it's like, and Donald Trump is a multi-millionaire, and Donald Trump is known to evade taxes and all these other things and do things that are not, maybe not too moral. But then people are going to talk about Osho having 19 or 90 Rolls Royces or whatever the case may be. It's like, what does his wealth have to do with truth and the teachings of spirituality and meditation? You know, it's like people are so fixated into this belief that spiritual leaders need to live in poverty and give up all their possessions and all these other things. And you know, Buddha already went that route. Buddha was a prince, and he gave up all his riches and just went into the streets and started teaching, taught for over 40 years. And even you know, the Gandhi would give up technology and, you know, have his views on wealth. But Buddha already went that approach. Osho's more like, hey, you know, we live in this world where technology is an abundance, and we could use that to our advantage, and we have resources that we could use, and we could build wealth, and we could use wealth for good things. And that's what he did. He used the wealth to promote his teachings. That's why his books are all available on Amazon and all over the bookstores and even the libraries, even after his death. You know, that's why he has a meditation, you know, retreat center in India right now. You know, that's why he's on YouTube and people are still speaking about him. You know, but, you know, he continues to have a huge influence over the population even after his death. But you look at somebody like J. Krishnamurti, nobody really even talks about him. Nobody even really cares about him. You know, he's a great teacher too, you know, a great spiritual leader, but he didn't utilize the technology the way Buddha, you know, the way Osho did. You know, and, you know, it's like these sages are going to have to change with modern times, and in order to have a greater influence on the people. And it's obvious that his decisions worked, because they're making a documentary about him. There are books all over. He's still all over YouTube. People are still talking about him and learning from him. Just as myself, I've learned a lot from reading his books, and I didn't even meet him in person, and he even died way before I was even born. You know, so or, you know, he was alive. Well, I was born when he was still alive when I was born, but he died, you know, like in the 90s. You know, so he had an influence on my life, and if anything, my teachings are even more grounded in Osho's teachings than Bruce Lee's. I've read way more Osho books than I ever have of Bruce Lee's books, and Osho's expression of wisdom is at a whole nother level than what Bruce Lee was, you know, indicating during his time. It's just Bruce Lee's life was cut short, and he just didn't have enough time to share the wisdom that Osho was able to share during his lifetime. So, you know, people could talk bad about him all they like, but if people are curious and they want to know the truth, I recommend for them to study his work and make that decision on your own, rather than just listening to people that don't know what they're talking about.